The dream for many authors that I work with want to publish through a traditional publisher, or at least they're considering it. Frankly, it is appealing. Authors want help from someone who has expertise and someone to guide them. Going through a traditional publisher is also very appealing because they front the majority of the upfront costs for the book production. And there's just something that's kind of great about saying I'm published with XYZ publisher. Has a bit of prestige to it. Now, when it comes to working with a traditional publisher, however, many authors are disappointed. So on today's episode, I'm going to talk about why this happens and what you need to know and understand when working with a traditional publisher, as well as how to make it successful. This is Your Path to Publish. I'm your host, Zach Christensen. For the past decade, our team has guided authors just like you to find the best path to publish your book, get people excited to buy it even before it launches, and to turn it into the ultimate business card to build your business and your legacy. If you are ready to get your book out of your head and into people's hands, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. So to kick off this episode, I want to talk about the happiest place on earth, or at least it alleges, Disneyland. I remember when I first went to Disneyland when I was around 10 years old. I went with my parents and my two brothers, and it was just amazing, like everything a kid had dreamed of. I remember walking in the first day having my little autograph book, if you remember those, and the characters were walking around and you could go up and interact with them and they would sign your book or write something funny. And I believe that my mom somewhere still has that book of mine in a memory box. Now, fast forward to almost 30 years since that first moment that I had gone. I've been several times to Disneyland. I've been to Disney World twice, and it still has that same magic, but a lot has changed. And the last time I went to Disney World, I was a bit disappointed. If you remember the fast passes, you were able to have your card, you'd run to a ride and be able to put in your ID card for the day and be able to get a quick fast pass so you could get in the fast pass line and get on a ride. And then a few years ago, there was a new version of that was all online through their app, which they added. You were able to get in a fast pass line through your phone, so you didn't have to run to the ride that you wanted to and be sprinting all day through Disneyland. Probably a good thing with that change. You were also able to start to order food. You were able to get pictures done by cast members, and it was awesome. Nowadays, they have the Disney Genie and Genie Plus. All these changes, honestly, with the new ones for me, have been really disappointing, mostly because around the expectations of what I used to experience and what I experience now, and what Disney has done to change things and how complicated it is. I feel like I have to have a PhD in Disney and do a month's worth of planning before I go to their theme park. Can anyone relate with me there? You might be asking, what does this have to do with working with a traditional publisher? It all comes down to expectations. The expectations I have had for Disney are based on past experiences, and the new experiences are different. And so I've had to adjust my expectations because many of the changes are out of my control. I can voice what I do like and what I don't like, but the expectations are there, and there's a consequence of how I experience it and how Disney is going to react to how their customers are experiencing this moving forward. When authors work with traditional publishers, there are a lot of, we could say, myths or expectations that aren't always accurate, and it varies from publisher to publisher. And so it all comes down to those expectations. I had a manager and leader who used to say, nearly all, if not all, conflict in life comes from misunderstood or mismatched expectations. And so when you're working with a traditional publisher, you want to make sure you're going in with the correct expectations, and especially if you are pursuing the traditional publishing path. So here are a few different items that you need to consider, learn about, and understand to set the expectation as an author with a traditional publisher. So the first thing is not understanding a publisher's role. You need to understand why they exist, what their mission is, and how they make money. They are a business. So not understanding what their role is in your book, which typically is helping you get your book finished through different levels of developmental editing, copy editing, doing the design and layout, the cover, the printing, and the distribution of the book. Next is misaligned vision and expectations. When you pitch your book through a proposal and you're talking with the acquisitions editor or your agent is, you need to make sure the vision that you have and the vision that the traditional publisher has or is interpreting from you is aligned. Because you don't want to go down the path after signing a contract and realize that you have different visions and expectations, and then you need to pause, potentially delay the book, and figure out what the path is moving forward. So do all the work up front to make sure that your expectations and their expectations are aligned. Third thing is a publisher is generally not a marketer. You as the author are the marketer. You're going to be the one who sells the book. That's really disappointing for authors because I believe and understand that many authors just want to write. They want to put stories out into the world. They want to provide content. And switching from being a content creator, a book writer, to being a marketer can be a tough shift. However, you'll be surprised at how much congruency there are between the two. The next thing is to make sure you fully understand what it means to have them purchase the copyright to your book. There are certain expectations, restrictions, guidelines around how you can use the content in that book outside of the book, whether it's for training, for coaching, for other services or products, and how you can go about selling your book. This leads into the next thing you need to understand, and why authors are often disappointed, is that ultimately publishers are a business and that they need to make money. They have staff that they need to pay. They have customers that they need to sell the books to. If a publisher doesn't have book sales, they're going to go out of business. Many publishers pay in advance to buy the copyright to an author's book. And so that can be anywhere from $5,000, $10,000 up to 6 or maybe even 7 figures, depending on who you are and what you have built in your platform. Now, this is a risk for publishers. They're taking a risk and investing their time, money, and resources that this book will land and do well at the beginning and throughout the lifetime of its book to earn back the money that they have paid to the author. Stats that I've seen really show that only 25 to maybe 30%, give or take, of all books earn out their advance. So that could be 70% of all the books that publishers put out there and they pay in advance do not earn their money back. I think this is why you're seeing a lot of hybrid publishers pop up, more specialized publishers that do better royalty rates versus paying in advance. It's definitely had an impact on the industry. The next thing you need to understand is that you are not their only author. There's an expectation that you will be self-sustaining and self-motivated to hit the deadlines. And some publishers, honestly, are a little bit slower to get back to their authors than others. It just depends on what's on that acquisitions editor's plate, the team's plate, and where they're focusing. If they have a book launch coming up the next day, they may not get back to you until after the book launch. It's just how it is in some of the situation. And it can be disappointing because you thought that you were going to get this white glove service, which you may or may not get. But you need to understand that this is a coactive relationship. You have to do your part and they have to do their part. To wrap this up, I don't want this to discourage anyone from pursuing a traditional publisher because there are strong relationships with many authors and many traditional publishers. The reason I say that most everyone's going to be disappointed in their book publisher because I think there's an underlying desire to have someone care about your book as much as you do. And no one's going to care about your book as much as you do. There will be other people that have a high degree of it, but you're ultimately the one who's going to push it forward, keep it going, and get your message out there. You can have strong teams, you can have strong people on the bench pushing you along, but it's ultimately up to you. So lots of authors go into a publisher and think this is going to be great, everything's solved, and then they find out, wow, this is a lot harder than I expected. And the publisher isn't giving me as many resources, as much attention, and as much, frankly, marketing help as you expected. So on the production side, traditional publishers are generally amazing. On the marketing side, not so great. That is where I find where the disappointment comes in, is with the marketing. Because you want to do well, you put all this time and effort in, and sometimes you're just frankly disappointed. So, rule of thumb, act like you don't have a publisher if you actually do have one. It's all on you to get the book sold. You can do it. Thanks for listening today. Tune into next week's episode where I will be talking about how to know if you have a book worth writing. If you liked this episode, be sure to join our weekly newsletter and learn more about being successful on your author journey. Go to juxtabook.com and you can find a link to join our newsletter. Take a moment to rate and review Your Path to Publish. It helps us to reach other authors who are trying to find their path to publish and the best way to get their message out into the world. If you have any questions about a recent episode that you'd like to submit, visit juxtabook.com/Your Path to Publish and click the appropriate button, or you can find a link in the show notes. Go out there, dust off your manuscript, and turn it into a bestseller that grows your brand and your business.